So we have to try help existing family businesses retain their next generation as much as they can, as their ultimate flag bearers of the industry as well. I think about this sometimes and wonder what can be done to reduce this flight of talent to consider a career, if not in their own family business, but at least in the shipping industry, because the salt is in their blood already.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners. Welcome to the 141st episode of the Shipping Podcast. Mid-February, so quite some time back, I received an email from Airaj Isaacs in Dubai, saying that he has been listening to the Shipping Podcast for the last 6 months and always find my guests interesting to listen to. The Shipping Podcast captures in his ears the diversity of the industry and shares stories of people who have entered the industry without the formal shipping background, and that is something he wanted to talk about. As I am incredibly open to flatter, I decided to invite Airaj as a guest to the Shipping Podcast. You are about to listen to our conversation. I found it very interesting. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Airaj Isaacs, and I am a business director at the Cavalier Group. This is our family business, and I am part of it. I have been with the group for the last 3.5 years. Prior to this, I worked with a global events and communications agency based out of Geneva. This was for about 7 years. Almost all of my work experience has been based out of Dubai. However, I've been doing business across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. I am a parent with 2 boys.
Can I ask how old you are?
I am 34 years old.
Good. I'm now getting a lot of young people here and their perspective of the maritime industry, and I like that. I think that is good. So how did you come in contact with shipping? Was it through your family or why did you start working in the maritime industry?
Well, I'm second generation in the shipping business. My father set up a chartering business in the late 90s. So ultimately, it was a continuation of the fact that he started a business.
And how do you find that to be the second generation? Is it a pressure to work in the industry or?
To be honest, it's not, I don't feel the pressure, no. I personally get very motivated by complex projects and I like creating structure to deliver those projects. And honestly, shipping and trade have so many kind of complexities that intrigue me. So I found myself to be a natural fit to be part of the industry.
You wrote an email to me mid-February to say that a little bit of complaining that there was not a lot of guests from the Middle East. I agree with you. I haven't been able to travel to the Middle East before the pandemic, and I doubt if I will for a while now. So that is why I invited you to this episode. How do you find the maritime industry today? I mean, in the pandemic times, and has that affected you?
We already were working remotely whenever our ships were at port, so it didn't drastically impact us there. However, like everyone, there was a learning curve to get the entire organization to work from home. But we were okay in a couple of weeks. Being in a Gulf country, though, where meeting people face-to-face over a cup of coffee is part of business, there was some frustration. But we got through that as well. The UAE overall kept business accessibility high and promoted remote working effectively. So there have been a lot of meetings on Zoom and MS Teams. I think when you talk about the current pandemic, while right now in Dubai, we're back at the office and 90% of my team are back at the office. There were some strong learnings I personally had during the lockdown period. I think people have started to ask questions after the lockdown specifically. They're asking questions like, if I'm a student, do I need to wake up at 6 a.m. to be in a classroom at 8 a.m.? If I am an employee, why can I not work from home more often and spend more time with my kids? And as an employer, why do I need to pay such high rent? Can we not get as much done with less overheads? So, overall, people are asking what is essential to my well being and what is not. They're also asking deeper questions like, what do I need to run a great company? What do I really need to be a great parent? So, a lot of good and deep thinking has been happening. On shipping specifically, I think COVID-19 has also served as a catalyst to bring the technology discussions forward because COVID-19 is a catalyst for tech adoption in many industries, including shipping. So we're seeing a lot more conversations and online content around shipping technology investments. In the UAE, at least what we have seen, COVID-19 is promoting contactless experiences. And this we are already seeing in last mile logistics and the packages when you order online from Amazon. So this is where I'm seeing essentially happening in shipping right now because of the pandemic.
If we go back to you and your company, what is your responsibility in your company?
My responsibility essentially is overlooking after the business operations, the finance team, and administration, but also at the same time supporting new inquiries for business chartering requirements.
So, how many people are working in your offices?
We're about 12 to 15 people.
Do you see any changes in the future? I mean, moving forward after the pandemic, have we learned something new from this terrible time? I am thinking about, will you conduct your business more remote? Will there be a new way of doing business?
I think remote working has become an acceptable way of working. So going back to what I was saying earlier, there are people who are asking these questions and they do want to spend more time with their family because at the end of the day, they were able to achieve some results remotely. This may not be for all industries and this may not be for everyone in the shipping industry. We as a tanker chartering company already work remote with our vessels and the ports and the agents and even our charterers. So for us, it's not a big change. However, I think another important aspect is, at least what we have been looking at, is what does digitization mean for us? As a second generation member in the family business, we are constantly looking at new ways of improving our competitive advantage. And digitization is this big word which we're trying to internalize and also capitalize on as well. So far, we've already got some software services that we have on board for doing voyage calculators, for lay time calculations, and even consolidating communication. But what I'm trying to think about is, can we do something to just improve our existing efficiencies? Because we have a chartering desk, we have an operating team, we have a technical team, and I'm trying to see how is it that can we have all three parties have access to the same data in real time so we can make better decisions, because we are expecting the next couple of years to be lean periods. So, whenever we're operating vessels, we would like to know fuel consumption, weather details in real time so we can make better decisions and we can save some money by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's a traditional way of working with three different teams, and I think you're onto something there when it comes to maybe collaborating more and maybe even exchanging some information with ports and other stakeholders in the supply chain. Have you thought about those things?
I thought about this, and I also did think about what are the roadblocks to digitization. And those roadblocks to digitization we are no stranger to it, specifically our company, nor the region I operate in. I feel we have three main obstacles. And the first obstacle, which is a very important one, is money, investments. To get digitization to happen in shipping companies, we have to invest more in technology and more than what we have budgeted for. And to be honest, right now, a lot of us are just trying to survive the year. Yes, COVID-19 has accelerated tech adoption, but the economic damage done has left a lot of us unable to experiment with the technologies which we may have wanted to before COVID-19. I think the practical approach to managing the technology expenditure in the company for shipping companies at the moment is that if we are proactively putting aside some funds and building a tech strategic reserve for your own company, which can be deployed when the company has figured out what their digitization strategy needs to look like. All companies have different strategies actually and are at different points in the journey. The other obstacle, which is less about the numbers, but more to do on the soft side, is actually culture. Shipping, I feel, has a culture issue with tech adoption, and they tend to operate in silos. Yes, we have a traditional team where we have a chartering team, an operating team, and a technical team. But I think this is a framework which a lot of my peers in the industry also have. And but this structure has been cemented because of the industry's history of consolidation in the last 2 decades, from what I can see. And what happens because of consolidation is that people become very focused on protecting their own space and their own turf. So we can use this time in 2020 to look at procuring technology and software services, which is time well spent. But I think we need to sit back and try to reimagine the industry as well. And this is the part where we should be engaged with stakeholders. But I have to think, are the other stakeholders in my own community ready to share because their culture allows it to?
Yeah. But I think that this crisis will change a lot of things, and probably also culture, because we need to know what is the new reality and how do we get there. And the things we want to change, we need to start changing it now. And I think everyone who's got a stake in this realize the same thing. It's just a matter of finding some common ground and collaboration with maybe unexpected partners who you never thought about before.
No, that's true. If you had, you raised a very important point, common ground. I think the whole supply chain, logistics, and shipping industries, we all have one commonality, and that is we would like to raise our profile to people outside of our industry. And I think COVID-19 has exposed that global supply chains are just not resilient. So this actually is our time. We have to come forward. This is an advantageous position for us to come forward and say, look, the global supply chains have affected people at an end user level. People are not getting their groceries in certain countries on time. And this is a game changer. So this should invite us to come to the table with the stakeholders, people who are from the industry or outside the industry, to talk about this, that, okay, what can we do to make our global supply chains more resilient? And we as stakeholders, how can we add value to the new supply chain methodologies?
But how do you think that the maritime industry could become more visible to the general public and to politicians? I mean, we need to become more visible. That is my point of view, anyhow, because we also need to attract the young people.
I just want to take this point just to say something. When I started listening to your podcast, there was a couple of things which really interested me. And the first was that you were able to speak to people who have such amazing backgrounds and they have entered our industry and they are adding value and they're making a difference. And specifically, it was this question, the one that I look forward to in almost all your interviews, is that I want to know, what do other people think about this, because I think about it also. And I come actually from a non-shipping background, professionally speaking. To answer your question, I have, in my opinion, to raise the industry profile, I see three elements to it, and I think you'll find it interesting. The first is that I am a big advocate for non maritime people joining the industry. Now, actually, post COVID 19, may be a good time to attract talent from other industries on a full time or part time basis, as those industries have had redundancies. Communications, data analytics, tech, finance, public policy. You see, these are all capacities we need in our industry, and now might be a good time. You see, I'll tell you an interesting story. In my previous industry, which was events and communication, I recall at an event in Frankfurt, and I was in a session where the speaker had asked the audience, how many people in the industry had pursued a formal education in events and communication and have entered the industry on account of this education? And the answer was surprisingly only 20%. So that means 80% had entered the industry after they had pursued something else. And the events and communications industry has a high volume of talent with a diverse background. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if we had people join the maritime and shipping industry and our industry statistic would be somewhere closer to 50% of people with a formal shipping background, while the other 50% came from a non-maritime background? I think it would be very nice. So to raise our industry profile, we have to be open-minded and probably incentivized to bring non-maritime people on board. And now is a great time. The second is we have to address digital natives. I have another story. So we have had in the last few weeks, 2 summer interns, which are high school graduates working with us before they go on to the next phase of their life. Apart from getting them to learn the ropes of our organization, we had them create business plans around an industry that is interesting to them. These 2 interns, they decided to work on food security for their business plans. And these high school graduates have not had any learning in this space. They've not learned anything in the classroom around this. But this has not stopped them from going online and learning all about it and surprising me with so many facts and ideas about the food security industry. The point I'm making here is that these interns, digital natives, are very comfortable going online and learning about a problem, a solution, an industry, and deciding if this is right for them to invest more time in. I don't know if we're doing enough to get digital natives at their impressionable ages interested about our industry. I really don't think we are.
I don't think we do. And my question to you would be, do you think that the truth about the shipping industry is online already? Or should we also update that part?
Definitely, I feel the online capacity has areas of improvement. I joined my organization 3.5 years ago, and I went and I had to meet people. I relied on the ICS, the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers, for a lot of content, but that content was not online. I had to buy books. I had to sit and read. I had to meet people. I had to discuss, and I'm comfortable with meeting people and discussing. But a digital native would choose to sit and see, is this content online, to validate if it is worth their time in the first place. So we have to relook at this. And in my region, the Middle East, North Africa region, I really think about this a lot because 60% of the population over here is below the age of 30. So they're already looking at all sorts of other sectors and industries, and we don't want to get left behind in building visibility for them. The third one, when it comes to building visibility about our industry, actually is something else. It's the retention of talent. This may sound anecdotal to me, but I actually have friends who come from shipping family businesses and they are not working with their family businesses at all. I have about 4 friends right now who are as such. These people have gone on to pursue careers in finance, consulting, the tech industry, and data analytics. And these are all capacities which we need in the shipping industry, especially tech and data analytics. Yet they have chosen to take on work opportunities in other industries. So we have to try help existing family businesses retain their next generation as much as they can, as their ultimate flag bearers of the industry as well. I think about this sometimes and wonder what can be done to reduce this flight of talent to consider a career, if not in their own family business, but at least in the shipping industry, because the salt is in their blood already.
I think you're right. I have met some second generation or third generation ship owners, and yeah, they go astray for a while, but they always come back. At the end of the day, they come back, and they are as passionate as we are, who have just used the banana leaf to come into this industry.
Okay.
But yeah, everyone should have their own choice, of course. Otherwise, you shouldn't be forced to do this.
No, that's true. We don't have to force, but we have to demonstrate the opportunity effectively.
And there are so many. I mean, I think there are so many cool things that is happening in our industry, and I think there are so many exciting things you could do. And as you say, we will be needing so many people with new knowledge that we don't have. And that is what I see young women coming into the industry with the knowledge of new business areas like 3D printing or blockchain or things like that, where there hasn't been anyone else doing it. So it's a free field. They can just run with it.
I agree with you. I come from a family of very established women in the workplace. So I think about this point also that you raised, that women can serve as the effective gateway for 3D printing, blockchain, and all of the new areas which we still have yet to integrate effectively into the shipping community.
In my view, also, the future leaders, they are more collaborative. They have to know how to work collaborative with other people. Not as prestigious, but maybe to have another, I think we will have another view on leadership moving forward. And maybe that will also include the women.
For me, women in our industry is a very interesting subject. You know, my grandmother, my mother, my aunts on both sides of my family, they're all established, enterprising women. I have a sister who's going to college possibly in September, October, we don't know yet. And my wife also, she has been part of a business brand and is operating one at the moment. None of them actually are in shipping. Yet I see the value all of them can bring to the table if they had the opportunity presented to them correctly at the time. So you see, the argument for women in shipping is to help support actually another important idea in the workspace, which is cognitive and neurodiversity. So cognitive diversity, I'm sure a lot of people know what it is. It's essentially just the inclusion of people who have different ways of thinking, a different viewpoint. This is not just great for shipping, it's great for any workplace in any industry. But neurodiversity, it is a concept where neurological differences are to be recognized and respected as any other human variation, just like race and just like gender. These differences can include those labeled with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and other which have been labeled. You see, we need different. I think we're on the same page, you and I. And if we need different, women do different better than men, in my opinion, most of the time. So if we can get more at the leadership stage, but if we can get women at the leadership stage who are coming from non-maritime sector, we probably will have a chance to get our environment to evolve more than if we had women just graduating through the ranks as well in shipping.
I totally agree with you. That's my problem. I always agree with my guests.
Thank you.
Did you ever have a role model growing up?
Well, my parents, of course, both are entrepreneurs who have collectively set up businesses in the past in shipping, the events industry, art. They had an art gallery. They opened an art gallery so many years ago, a flying academy, and more recently, a fashion bridal business. So definitely my parents. Apart from them, my previous employer, the organization I was with, Roger and his son Sebastian Tondor, I had a chance up close to see how this family could make a business grow to new heights out of their native Geneva. So those were, I would say, role models.
Who would you be interested in listening to in the next episode of the Shipping Podcast?
I have a couple of people actually. One is Jenna Brown at Shipamax. Are you familiar with her?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Jenna Brown's one of the founders of Shipamax. It's a software company that extracts data and helps with decision making. I think she's a brave person with a tribe of mixed maritime people trying to take the industry forward. And the second is a person by the name of Asad Taki at Universal Navigation out in Singapore. He's someone my age, but in the dry bulk chartering space, who has a really great grasp of the dry bulk and commodities market. Whenever I have questions on dry bulk related, I always reach out to him. So I think both of them would be interesting to have on the podcast.
And I'm so lucky now because I can just sit at my table at my desk here and do interviews from all over the world. Usually I travel to see my guests, to sit down with them in person, because I think that also makes the interview a little bit more like intimate.
Of course.
But now I'm making the best of it. So I'm trying to interview people far, far away where I will never go anyway. So I will try.
Don't say that. Hopefully, sooner than later, we will be able to catch up at a cafe in Dubai, or I come towards Sweden and we'll have a chance to get a meal together. It will be sooner than later.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much. Thank you for participating and thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you, Ira, for sharing your thoughts and contributing to the Shipping Podcast, and for giving a voice to the maritime professionals in the Middle East. I promise you to try and be more diverse also geographically. We'll see what I can do. I am currently on a small breakaway, so if you have sent me feedback or requests to be a guest on the Shipping Podcast, please bear with me. I will reply as soon as I get back. So until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a Shipping Podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.